Service your existing car with us right now.
And it's worth £500 off your next car.
Yes, at Macklin Motors Toyota, we'll give you a £500 voucher off any of our brand new Toyotas when you book in for a service with our expert Toyota trained technicians.
We even have complimentary courtesy cars available, so book your service now and get £500 off any new Toyota.
Visit macklinmotors.co.uk or see us at Kennishead Road, Darnley.
Macklin Motors, the new name for Toyota sales and servicing in Glasgow.
Valid on services till 30th September. Excludes Motability and fleet customers. One £500 voucher per vehicle purchased by 31st December.
The Go Radio Football Show with MacklinMotors.com, representing some of the biggest motoring manufacturers across Scotland.
Let's go! Good evening, Paul Cooney here with Barry Ferguson. The countdown well and truly on to the SPFL kick-off later this month. In fact, Barry, 3 weeks, 5 days from now. Celtic today flew out to Austria for pre-season training at altitude. I want to ask you about that. Rangers welcomed John Souttar, the ex-Hearts star. He had his first training session today ahead of their trip to their training camp in Portugal. But Barry, we spoke about your old friend, the great goalie who passed away at the weekend. Very suddenly at the end, we knew he had cancer. We knew it was terminal. But the papers and the websites and the radio and TV full of tributes for Andy Gorham.
Yeah, and rightly so, Paul. One of my heroes growing up, I'll be honest with you, getting into the early 90s when Rangers signed him from Hibernian for, I think it was £1 million. That was the players like McCoy, St Duran, Goffs, McCalls, Fergusons and Loudrops and Gascoignes. But Andy Gorham, when you a wee boy down the park and you get shoved in goals for your 5 minute spell, I always used to kid on I was Andy Gorham. So he was certainly one of my heroes growing up. When we got the news 10 weeks ago that he had terminal cancer, they'd given him 6 months to live, and he's only lasted 10 weeks. It was really sad news. And watch Sky Sports, some of the pictures of him playing with Rangers, some of the saves that he made. He was a phenomenal goalkeeper, no doubt about it. So it was a sad day when the news came through on Saturday morning, Paul.
So many of your old colleagues have been on, and Celtic players as well. They're today in the paper. Look at the back page there. Pierre Van Hooijdonk saying, Andy, you were unbelievable. And that was maybe one of the finest saves you ever saw against Pierre Van Hooijdonk in an Old Firm derby.
Unbelievable save. I remember Tommy Burns' famous quote about Andy Gorham. But when you're watching back the footage, some of the saves that he made, and certainly against Celtic, were phenomenal saves. And it was interesting to see his career getting let go at West Brom. I was watching it close. They thought he was too small, went to Oldham and worked his way up, got his move to Hibs, and then he became an absolute legend at Rangers, and then also went on to continue to play after that at Motherwell. Had a spell at Man United as well.
What a spell.
Yep, and went down the leagues in Scotland. But listen, one of my favourite players and one of my heroes growing up.
And people say never meet your heroes, but in your case,
I've met plenty of them. Yeah, I've met plenty. I mean, he was a top player. As I said, you growing up a Rangers player, why could you not want to be like Andy Gorham or as the players that I mentioned, McCoy and Durrants and McCalls and Ferguson, guys like that. But his attitude, that was one of the things. He was a winner, a proper winner. You could see it in him when he was playing with Rangers. If he lost a goal, and I remember as a young kid watching him at training, if somebody scored against him in training, he'd go absolute mental, put the ball away. That's the standards that he had, and that's the standards that you had to have if you wanted to be a Rangers player.
And of course another goalkeeper followed him, didn't he, a few years later. But Alan McGregor has that same attitude. He hates to lose anything.
Exactly the same attitude. Probably around about the same size as the goalie.
Slightly taller
as well. Yeah, no much taller. And a lot of people say you need to be 6 foot plus to be a top goalkeeper. But Andy Gorham and Alan McGregor are top goalkeepers, and they're not the biggest of people.
And for Scotland as well, he was a hero. I remember at the World Cup in 1990, and I remember beforehand in 98, actually over in France, and he wasn't happy that he was dropped beforehand, and he came back from America in one of them because he thought, well, if I'm not going to play, I'm not going to stay out here at the camp, because he had his own mind.
Yeah, he believed that he was the number one. I think if you ask the players that were involved in that squad at the time, they would probably have says. I mean, Jim Leighton was an excellent goalkeeper as well, but I mean, Andy Gorham was top class. But look, as I said, it was when you get the news 10 weeks ago, you've got 6 months to live. It's a bit of a shock when over the last week you've heard a few people say that he's went downhill slightly and whatever, and to get the news on Saturday morning, yeah, it was devastating, to be honest.
And remarkable that he spoke just 10 days before at the fundraiser in Airdrie.
Yeah, I seen that. There was a few of the ex-players there and ex-Celtic players, which was brilliant to see. Simon Donnelly was there, Peter Grant was there.
That's right, Peter left from the studio here last
I mean,
Wednesday.
that just shows you what people thought of him, and what they thought what type of goalkeeper he was, and not just the type of goalkeeper, type of person he was as well. He liked a glass of red wine, as I think a lot of people knew. But as I said, it's sad news for hundreds of thousands of Rangers fans, and certainly the people who were close to him and his family as well.
Thanks, Barry. His tribute, your tribute to the late great Andy Gorham, the goalie, as everyone.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
You never called him Andy or other nicknames. It was always the goalie. That's what he was remembered for, and what a top class goalkeeper he was.
He sure is. Some of the other headlines then tonight, as I mentioned earlier, Rangers will be off to Portugal. John Souttar turned up today for the first time in the Rangers tracksuits. Just weeks ago that he played so well against Rangers in the Cup final. Some of the other headlines: Southampton now leading the Joe Aribo race. We're calling it ahead of Crystal Palace. Will he stay or will he go? Rangers have rejected a loan offer from Auxerre for Fashion Sakala. GVB has high hopes for him. So we'll talk about that in a second or two. And for Celtic, Joe Hart has welcomed Ben Siegrist, the competition for the number 1 jersey. Callum McGregor, the captain, hopes Celtic will sign a couple more players before the window shuts. And of course, they got Jota the other day. And they've been greedy, Barry, the number of signings that Celtic have. I'm joking. But Celtic doing the business early. We're talking about them tonight. We'll talk about Rangers as well, but we went over the Rangers team and what might happen over the weekend. Can I ask you about Aribo? What do you reckon? Is he going to be on the move? And what about Southampton?
I can see why they're interested in him, Paul. He's for me, he's a top midfielder. He grew into to be a top midfielder. Some of the performances, I thought the first half of the season he was the best player in Scotland. Obviously went away to the African nations, and his form slightly dipped when he come back. But for me, he's a top level player, and I'm not surprised. There's been a number of clubs: Crystal Palace, Nottingham Forest, Aston Villa, now Southampton. So that will be a worry for the Rangers fans, because you want to try and keep your top quality players. But again, money talks, Paul. Every player has a valuation, and I think if that valuation, certainly with Aribo going into his last year of his contract, if that valuation is met and he doesn't want to commit to Rangers, then Rangers might need to do business. But he's a player I would like to think that Rangers are trying to get on a longer term contract, because I really like him. I like him in that number 10 position. But the beauty of Aribo is, well, he can play anywhere across the midfield. But we just need to wait and see. It's this time of season, Paul. The window shuts in about 11 weeks time.
59 days, 5 hours 49 minutes.
But I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised with the performances he's put in for Rangers domestically and certainly in Europe.
So many signings down south, aren't there? There's a lot in the go. We'll talk about that during the next hour. It's the 1 hour summer special here. For Celtic, Callum McGregor says they want more signings. Jota signed on the dotted line finally on Friday. We heard a wee bit from him. He said he's got a lot more to give.
Well, I think the club speaks for itself, and the experience that I had last season was amazing. So I think it was an easy choice to make. I'm really happy on staying here. That's what I want for me, and I just can't wait to develop more under the team and to conquer a lot of things.
So Barry, what are you thinking? Callum McGregor saying they want a few more signings. Where would they be if you were in charge at Celtic?
Good question. Well, I would have probably said left back, because Taylor's not got much competition with Scales going to Aberdeen, but they've signed the young man from Argentina,
Alessandro Bernabei.
I think probably if you're looking at Celtic, a dominant midfielder in that holding position, I think that's one area that Postecoglou will be looking to strengthen. But as I said, I always maintain this: when you're on top, that's the best time to strengthen. And Callum McGregor saying that he hopes to see another couple of players come in through the door. If you want to be a really top team, you always need new players coming in, because it makes you sit up and take notice. Because if you're sitting in that dressing room, I go back to me as a player, when you started pre-season, when you see new players coming in, even in your position, that meant that you had to even go up a level to make sure that you kept your place in the starting 11. So I always think it's important that clubs who finish the season high, who are winning trophies, always look to strengthen their squads, and that's what Celtic are certainly trying to do. Rangers at this moment in time, it's pretty quiet, but I'm sure that will hot up in the coming weeks.
Yeah, even audio wise, there hasn't been no interviews so far, but that surely will change in Portugal. So see, when another player came in, either a big money signing or somebody you see amazing talent, does it just give you that wee extra spur to give another percentage point to make sure you're the best you can be?
Yeah, you want that as for your team as well, because I think if you have a successful season, it's always good to see new players come through the door, and good quality players, and always enjoyed good quality players coming in my position, because I knew that I had to make sure I trained well, and when I got on that stepped on that pitch, I had to make sure that my performances were at a decent level, because if they weren't at a decent level, there was somebody either sitting on that bench or in that stand ready to take your place. So I think if you want to be a successful team, competition for places is massive for me.
It sure is. Celtic are in Austria, and part of it is altitude training, Barry, and you've trained in Austria, and you touched on it on Friday. We're going to tell the listeners what's it like and why they're doing it.
Well, I've been to Austria 3 times pre-season. It was probably the hardest pre-season that I had came across. Obviously, the altitude, you're training above sea level. It was tough that week or 10 days you were away, but you felt the benefits, Paul, when you come back.
Is it hard to get a breath?
Yeah, it's hard to get a breath. Yep, it's and that's why I think a number of managers and a number of clubs take that opportunity. And Austria is quite a popular destination for clubs to go. Away up in the mountains, you're out the way of everything, small villages with nothing to do. There's just a hotel, a few houses and a few football pitches, but that's what you go in pre-season. You go and you go away to focus on doing one thing, and that's getting fit as possible. And I always thought when I done altitude training, I felt the benefits from it, certainly when I get back home to whether it was England or Scotland. So I can see the reason why Celtic are doing that.
Why would others not do that? Because Rangers fans might think, well, why are we not going to altitude training?
Well, listen, it's up to the manager. I mean,
and the
Rangers are going
science,
to Portugal, where it's going to be 30 plus degrees as well. It's tough to train in their conditions as well. But I always felt, my own opinion, I felt that I get the benefit of training at altitude. That's the 3 times that I'd done it. Certainly I come back feeling a lot fitter than I did going different places.
Some of the other headlines today: Aaron Hickey is set to complete a transfer to Brentford this week. What do you think about it? The ex-Hearts player.
Yeah, I could see. I mean, I haven't seen too much of him. Obviously, I'd seen a bit of him at Hearts and Bologna. Was it paid £3 million? Round about that. And he's went over there, and he's went over into a tough league. Listen, you need to be a good defender to play in Serie A. And he certainly went over to Bologna and produced the goods. And you could see it in a Scotland shirt. You could see the huge potential he's got, and what a bit of business with Bologna. Sign him for £3 million, and I think the fee will rise up to around about the £17 million mark.
Staged, but yeah, it could be.
Yep,
massive profit.
And he looks to me that he could, no doubt in my mind, play in the Premier League. And listen, that's brilliant for the Scottish national team as well.
You wonder why he wasn't picked up again by Celtic or Rangers. You do wonder, because you spoke about it 2 years ago. What about Aaron Hickey?
Yep, there's a number of players. The one that jumps to me is John McGinn in Celtic.
Do you have to say that to the Celtic fans? You've got to throw that one in.
But that's the one that jumps out at me. The £3 million, Celtic wouldn't go to the £3.5 million. Aston Villa did. And look what they've got now. They've got a 40-50 million pound player in their hands, and similar to Hickey, and there's a lot of young players who are like that, and you are surprised at times that neither Rangers or Celtic, I wouldn't say gamble, because these are good players. It does surprise me that they don't go and try and sign them. But look, it's proven that they go away to, whether it's Serie A or down to England, they've went on and they've went and played at the highest level, and it's brilliant to see. As I said, it's great for the Scottish game in a whole that these players are going and playing at the highest level.
Lyndon Dykes, for example, I'm not saying he's not an Aaron Hickey, completely different player, but went to QPR, wasn't a lot of money, and I remember you thinking he could have been for Rangers.
Well, for £1 million, again, I don't like using the word gamble. I would have went and took a shot on that one. Listen, that £1 million up in Scotland, it is a bit of money, but I think it's worth it. And as you said, you've got John McGinn, you've got Hickey, you've got my young nephew Lewis just now, who's been earmarked by a number of clubs down in England and in Italy. I don't know what that fee is. Is it £2 million, £2.5 million? I think these players have got the potential to play at an old firm club.
Have you been on the phone to him at the weekend? Can you tell us here in Go Radio? Is he speaking Italian?
No, listen, he's intelligent enough to go and make his own decisions. I believe that for his development, he does need to go and play at a higher level. No disrespect to Aberdeen, because I did say, and I never get quoted on this, Aberdeen has been really good for Lewis as well, for giving him the platform, as is Hamilton Accies have. But I do believe he's at the stage in his career that he needs to go and make that next step, whether that's at a Rangers, whether that's at a Celtic, whether that's at a club down south or abroad. We just need to wait and see. But it'll be interesting over the next 7 weeks to see where he ends up.
You could be visiting him maybe over in Italy. Who knows? We don't know. Maybe we're here in Glasgow.
I don't mind I wouldn't mind a wee trip over to Italy. Nice food, nice wine.
Of course. You get family all over the place. Your son down in England playing and all the rest. So it's going to be a busy year. Yep,
it's going to be a busy year. Yep, my son's down in he's just signed with Harrogate, so I look forward to get down and watching a few games in League 2 down there as well.
Some of the other headlines today: Everton are in talks to replace Rangers in the Sydney Cup. Remember the Sydney Cup? It was going to be Rangers and Celtic. Rangers.
Yeah, I remember that. I mean, I'm just seeing. I'm watching Sky Sports here. Duncan Ferguson just left at Everton.
Breaking news.
Yep, which he's
been there a long time.
Yeah, he's part of the furniture there. Big Dunk. It says that he's wanting to go away and exercise his own managerial opportunities. And he's been there a long time. He's an absolute hero there, Big Dunk.
Absolutely, totally love him, don't
love him down there. And I do think he's manager material.
People thought he would get it, maybe.
I did think, because he's had a couple of goes at it in terms of standing in for when managers have been sacked, and their results have picked up. And I did think the last time when the Everton manager gets sacked, I did think he might have got that opportunity. So that's one that he's maybe disappointed in, and he's wanting to go and try other opportunities, and see what's out there. But I do think he's got the potential to be a really good manager, Big Dunk.
He was a major player there at Goodison, wasn't he? He was like the permanent coach, wasn't he? By the club. So managers would come and go, Ancelotti, all the rest of them. But he was there, and he was almost the
he knows the club
fixture.
Inside out. I think it's always important that you have somebody at a club who knows it inside out. So
how good was he as a player? For somebody of his height.
I was only young when he obviously Rangers splashed out a bit of money on him coming for Dundee United. Big gangly, but see, technically he was really good as well. Just control. A lot of people think of the size of him, they just think about heading the ball. But his first touch and link-up play was really good, and obviously he did well at Rangers, but obviously went down to England and became an absolute legend at Everton. Got a move. Remember he went to Newcastle. I know. And then back to Everton.
Shocked everyone because he had the tattoo, doesn't he?
Yep. I used to love watching Big Dunk, and as I said, surprising that he's left Everton.
There's Barry Ferguson with the breaking news. Big Duncan Ferguson has left Everton, and Everton could well replace Rangers in the Sydney Cup. That's going to be in November, when it's going to be World Cup time. Still a decent tournament down there, and it's good.
Is it still happening?
And but I believe so. Yeah, Nathan Patterson maybe up against Celtic. Yeah.
Yep. Listen, one thing when Celtic go out there, they'll get an unbelievable reception. Obviously, Postecoglou, now Harry Kewell.
course,
who's
yeah.
an Australian football legend as well. So they'll get well looked after down there. And as you say, is Everton have got some top players. So interesting to see if it is Everton who replace obviously Rangers.
Although Rangers fans would have come out in huge numbers as well. Can you imagine that part of the world? They're desperate to see their teams.
Yeah, I was always with the mind. Like, I understand the frustrations where it was coming from for the Rangers fans, but also you speak to Big Oz.
Of course,
the following down under.
Yeah.
For Rangers and Celtic, there's hundreds of supporters clubs down there, so it would have been nice for these men and women and children to see their heroes close up. But listen, Rangers made the decision. Celtic are still going, and it looks as if Everton are going to replace them.
Paul and Barry on American Independence Day. I'm going to ask you, who's the best American player you played alongside?
The Go Radio Football Show with MacklinMotors.com, representing some of the biggest motoring manufacturers across Scotland.
Let's go!
Thanks, Chris, for the traffic and travel. Paul Cooney with the former Rangers in Scotland, Blackburn Rovers, Birmingham City and Blackpool legend Barry Ferguson is in the house tonight. You're looking pretty fit, Barry. How's the training going? Because this Friday is the Masters at Braehead.
Yeah, it's going as well as it can.
What does that mean?
You know what it's like. You want to try and get as fit as possible, Paul, but when you try and you do a bit too much, the old injuries from your playing days start to crop up. So sometimes I need to be realistic, and I can't run as much or as fast or as long as I could when I was playing. But no, it's going all right. I'm really looking forward to it, because there's a lot of top players I'm going to be playing with in the Rangers team, but also going to be coming up against some top players in the Celtic team, Man United and Liverpool. So I think it'll be a great night, and it's always good to meet up with ex-teammates as well, and play against guys that you had a few battles with as well in the past.
Did you do about an hour's training today?
Yep, just under an hour. Look, I enjoy training, I enjoy keeping fit. As I said, it's just sometimes niggly wee injuries from your playing days.
Do you almost feel the same as you were like 10 years ago, and then the body?
Listen, the mind still works. It's just sometimes the legs don't take you where you want to get to. But listen, that's just part of getting older. Because as I said, I'm not getting any younger. I'm 45 soon. So
we're all getting a wee bit older, Barry. But you get plenty.
But I'm looking forward to it, Paul. It'll be a good occasion. And hopefully it'll be a full house, and I'm sure the fans like to see the ex-players who used to play for the clubs they support.
There's great names, aren't there?
Yeah, there is. There's a lot of good names, and I'm sure there'll be some good football involved. And as I said, I'm really looking forward to it.
Can I throw a name at you then? 4th of July, American Independence Day. We've got a few flags up there. You quite like the colours anyway, don't you? The American flag.
Colours are they're up my street.
So Claudio Reyna, great American player. For those who don't remember, most of our listeners will. How good was he? Where did he play?
One of the best players. I always say it when people ask me the question, who's the best? And I mean, I've played with some incredible players, but Claudio Reyna's up there. Again, one of the players I didn't know too much about. We signed him from Wolfsburg in Germany, and he came across, and I knew after a couple of sessions what a player we've got here. He could play central midfield, he could play in the right, he played at right back at times, but phenomenal football player. Could get about the pitch, was aggressive, he'd everything in the locker, Claudio, and he was brilliant to play with, and he's up there with the best that I've played with.
And Americans loved him as well. He went south as well, didn't he?
Yeah, he played down at Man City and Sunderland in the Premier League, and I think he's sporting director at New York Red Bulls, I think, or New York City. I'm not too sure. In the MLS, one of the ones. I'm sure James will check that up for us.
James will know.
But he's still involved in football, and his young son playing at Borussia Dortmund.
That's right, came up during the year, didn't
and
it?
He looks if he's going to be a proper player as well.
And a great connection with GVB.
Yep, he's one that maybe Rangers could get in loan. You never know. You never know.
Him there, and then Larsson to Celtic. maybe.
Yeah, I seen
Jordan
that as well.
Larson,
Yep,
yeah.
he looks spitting image of his dad.
That'd be great, the two of them coming, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, they've got a lot to go to be as good as their dads.
I think that's a curse, sorry, if it's your son or your nephew.
Yeah, sometimes
Somebody
it's
says, Ferguson, you related to Barry and Derek?
sometimes it's difficult for them because they always get labelled, oh, that's your son or that's your nephew. I don't like that because they're their own people and they make their own path in their career.
Did you get a wee bit of that at the beginning about Derek, your big
Oh yeah,
brother?
I got it for a young age. Well, that's Derek's young brother. I mean, but my brother was one of my heroes. You know what I mean?
Some player, wasn't he?
Yeah, I used to love going and watching him and Durant in the middle of the pitch when they were younger. Were unbelievable.
They were a
partners.
special
Yeah,
combination.
they
And
were.
how old were they? They were only, what, 20?
Oh, even younger, I used to
19,
go and
yeah,
watch them
yeah.
with my dad, and I got that. But do you know what? It made me more determined. You know what I mean? I wanted to be my own name and make my own career. But listen, it's always going to happen. That I had it. My son had it as well. Lewis is getting it a wee bit. But listen, they're strong characters and they're making their own career and they're being successful, and that's the most important thing, Paul.
Get a strong family. Did your dad ever say which one was the better player, you or Derek? Did he ever say?
I've actually never asked him.
Right, let's ask him. Dad.
Nah,
No.
listen,
I'll tell you, he was some player.
I think, my brother.
It should have been longer.
Yeah,
I mean, he probably
it should have been.
Yeah.
Yep, but obviously, had fallen out with Souness and went to Hearts. And at that time, I think it was 1990 or 89, 1990, round about that mark. And Hearts paid 750,000.
Did he? Was that Alec MacDonald at that time?
Yep,
And
that's
Sandy
right.
Jardine. Yep.
That's right. I think Joe Jordan.
Oh yeah,
was manager there
Big
as well.
Joe Jordan.
Then went down
What a
to
player as well.
Sunderland.
Yep.
Played down there. And used to go down and watch him every second week with my dad. So that stuck in my mind. I might ask my dad once I've got a couple of beers in me one night.
Go on. Dad, phone 0808 17 17 700.
No, but he was.
No.
Listen, he was a top
Sure.
player.
Absolutely.
But
Talking about-
Durante as well.
Yeah. Oh,
I mean, I don't like going back into about the injury or whatever,
No,
but I
no.
would have loved to have seen him if he never got that injury. Because he was still a top player after the injury. He was. But that did hold him back a wee bit. I would have loved to have seen him go and have a right run at it, injury free. And even at a young age, you tell. I mean, he was late runs into the box, goal scoring midfielder, a right throwback. He would have been. No, he was a top player, but it would have been interesting to see.
It would have been phenomenal. When you came in then, final question on this, but did people say to you, you were a young version of Ian Durrant and your big brother Derek? You did a bit of both.
Yeah, people did say that. But again, it's one of the ones where, listen, it's great to get labelled with these sort of players, but I always had a mindset, Paul, that I wanted to be my own, make my own career and be my own type of player. But they were guys that I looked up to and I took bits out of, and I was lucky enough as a young boy to go into Ibrox and be amongst all these sort of players, at the McCoys, Durrants and Goffs and John Browns and Ian Ferguson's, guys like that, to be amongst them and listening to them and see how they train. That was the biggest eye opener for me when I was a young kid, watching. And the goalie who we spoke about at the start of the show, watch these guys train. They trained like it was their last training session.
Did they?
That's the kind of attitude, and that's the attitude that I took into my career. Because I'm a big believer in you've got to train the way you want to play on a Saturday or a Tuesday or a Wednesday.
So do you think that's how they got to the 9 in a row?
That's
Yeah.
100% how
talent.
that group of players under Walter Smith were so successful, because the way they train. They knew how to enjoy themselves. But listen, I used to stand at the side when I was a young kid after we'd finished our training, or you were injured, you would have to go up and help with the first team, and you watch these guys train. Wow.
How important is it, the team spirit? And I'm thinking of Rangers and Celtic as we go into the new season then. It's too early to say. We'll have to see what the Rangers dressing room looks like, in 59 days or whatever. And Celtic might have some more signings as well. But I wonder what the mix of the players is like. And could you say who I'm not going to ask you who's going to win. It's far too early. Are Celtic in pole position?
Yeah,
because they
but
won it?
I mean, Celtic have got to be favourites because they're champions. There's the pressures that come with that. Once Postecoglou came in at the start of the season, mean, it was a hell of a turnover of players, and sometimes you wonder if that's going to work. But you've got to give him credit for the amount of players that have come in, and guys who, again, go back to it, never heard of before, like the Japanese boys coming in, who have been unbelievable players for Celtic. So at this moment in time, yeah, you have got to say that Celtic are favourites because they are reigning champions. They've made some signings, they've done business pretty early, but again, it's still early, Paul. There's still, I think Rangers have still to do a fair bit of business as yet. And again, I believe, I said at the start of last season, I think it's going to go right down to the wire again. There's no doubt about it.
Good piece from Keith Jackson in the Record this morning, and he's talking about Ange Postecoglou and what he's done in the last year. Miracle worker Ange facing toughest challenge yet as Europe's finest loom large for his rebuilt dream team. And that's true, isn't it? It's they're favourites at the moment for the title again, but in Europe, it's Rangers have set the pace, going all the way to the final of the Europa League. And for Celtic, it's been a number of years since they got to Champions
struggled.
League. They have, haven't they?
No doubt they've struggled in Europe. And that'll be one of the things that I'm sure Postecoglou and his coaching staff, and they'll be adamant that they need to try and get that domestic form into European form. Because I said it's been pretty poor, pretty dire if you look over the last few years. And the flip side of that, Rangers in Europa League, albeit it's not the Champions League, but you're still coming up against some tough teams. But that's where you pit your wits against the best in the Champions League. Celtic are in it. Rangers have still got to get in it. It'll be tough for them, but they need to make sure they get in it.
Is that
because I think last year that was disappointing. Yeah. No disrespect to Malmo, but Rangers should be beating teams like Malmo.
You're still kicking yourself about that, aren't you? You know, we're talking.
Yeah, I was really disappointed, and I'm sure the Rangers fans were. And I seen who was it? Done Scotty Arfield done an interview there, I think, at the end of the week, saying that Rangers need to make sure they get into the Champions League because that wasn't good enough. Last year losing to Malmo, brilliant Europa League. Listen, it's still Europe, but that's where you want to be as a Champions League.
Sure is. And to have both of them would be phenomenal. Rangers did so well to get Scotland in the position where we've got the automatic place, Celtic benefiting. And what's stopping Rangers from getting there? It's not impossible to get in the Champions.
They've got to make sure they get there.
Yeah, sure.
They've got to do everything in their power and make sure they make sure they're in that group stage. Because you just see, Paul, the finances that come with it.
It's phenomenal, isn't it?
Make a hell of a difference.
See, for Celtic, before we move on to some other things, including, I want to talk about a young Rangers player, ask you about him. But for Celtic, the holding midfield you said that they could do with, that's obviously with an eye to Europe as well, because they can't play exactly the way they've played in the SPFL against a PSG or a Man City.
No, it's no disrespect, but you're going up levels when you play in the Champions League. But in terms of, you were asking me about who do I think, or what positions do I think Celtic need to strengthen. That is one of the positions that I think that they're looking for a dominant number 6 in the middle of the pitch. Beaton's away now, he could play that. Callum McGregor does play it, but you've got James McCarthy, who really didn't get much game time. This is a big pre-season for him as well. So that is one area that I would imagine that Celtic are looking to strengthen.
Reading are reported on the Sunsport website, Reading monitoring Bolingoli. And there's a name you don't hear too often, the Celtic defender.
Yeah, Alec Ray's down there as well. He's
of course.
Assistant, Paul Ince is the manager down there. Look, I don't think he's got a future at the club. So he needs to go elsewhere. There's two guys in his position. So he needs to go and play. I wouldn't imagine that a professional's happy just to sit in the background and pick up your wages and no kick a ball. You want to play football as a professional, and it looks to me he's no chance of playing at Celtic, so he needs to move on.
Well, somebody who we spoke about throughout the spring, he had a great tour, didn't he? Holidays, Jota we're talking about, but I see he wore some of the club gear on holiday, he had some of the training tops on or something, so it was a sign that he was going to sign. He signed on Friday. And of course, he's talking about the Champions League.
Of course, it's always a trigger for a player to come and play on the Champions League. We have to be honest about that. and I'm no exception. It was something that I really liked it, and to live this moment in this club, everyone kept on saying to me like, Jota is something special, so you better stay in Celtic. So it happened. So yeah, I'm delighted that I'm here, and I really want to live a lot of good moments with Celtic.
He wants a lot of good moments. Not too many, you hope, Barry, but he's
I
great to
hope.
watch, isn't he?
Yeah, no, I'll be honest with you. I wasn't shocked, but just his level of play at times. He's a match winner, no doubt about it. When he's on fire, he's hard to stop, and I can see why. Celtic have splashed out the £6.5 million. I actually think it's a good deal at that sort of money. But again, if he goes and produces that sort of form he did last season, Paul, Celtic will struggle to keep a hold of him.
It's a steal, isn't it? £6.5 million.
Yeah, for the quality that he produced when he was fit, he was a difference at times. A lot of people going about like Kyogo, rightly so, for his goals, Callum McGregor, the main man in the middle of the pitch. But when Jota was on fire, he's got that something different in the final third, that bit of magic. And that's why Celtic have went and paid the £6.5 million for him. And I think at that sort of money, for the level of performances he put in, I think it's a real good deal for Celtic.
Barry's already said Celtic would start the favourites at the moment, given that they've won it and they've made the recruitments early.
The pressure's on Celtic. Yeah,
indeed. You're putting it on them. And for Rangers, then pressure on the transfer department. You know, the football
they need
department.
to
They need to support the manager.
Yeah, but it's great that they've signed up Golson, McGregor, Davis, Arfield. But the Rangers fans want to see players come in, and again, I'll go back to that word, competition for places, Paul. It's so important if you want to be a successful team.
Back in a moment.
The Go Radio Football Show with MacklinMotors.com, representing some of the biggest motoring manufacturers across Scotland.
Let's go!
At Wimbledon this afternoon, Jamie Murray, it's over for him, Barry, because he and Piers are out. And of course, last night in the mixed doubles, he went out with Venus Williams. It just didn't happen for him. So Jamie out at Wimbledon.
Yeah, I mean, disappointing. I mean, I love Wimbledon. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Love tuning into it. Watched it all day yesterday.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, whether it's doubles, mixed doubles, whether it's the women or the men. But as I says to you, mate, top athletes. These people. As I said, I love it, and no trying to play it. What a difficult game it is.
Yeah. I'm going to talk about it tonight. I'm meeting up with Ross King, who's just in from LA. He was at Wimbledon along with his sister Elaine. It's her birthday today, so happy birthday, Elaine. I'll hear all about Wimbledon.
Have
you
been?
I have, I've been with them before. Amazing.
I don't think the TV does it justice until you actually...
Some spectacle, isn't it?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
You having
place.
the Pims and all that? Were you doing a wee bit of that?
No. Well, no, in fact, I did have a couple of Pims. But not like you're probably having the champagne.
No, it was the Pims, no.
Right.
At the prices in Wimbledon. Are you kidding?
Yeah. Strawberries and
the
cream.
champagne. Oh, yeah, the full bit. You have to.
Yeah, you've got to do all that, haven't you?
So,
were you a VIP?
No, not at all.
You're in the Royal Box or something, weren't you?
No, not at all. But it's brilliant, isn't it? Who's going to win it? Are you still thinking it's going to be Djokovic against Nadal? Do you reckon in the final? I mean, hard to see past them, isn't it?
They two are phenomenal. They've been at the highest level for so many years. It's difficult to see past one of the two, but yeah, I don't know. I'm split between the two of them.
Okay. Yeah, Cameron Norrie's doing well, and his dad, of course, is Glasgow, and I know he's a big Rangers fan.
I seen that.
I see he's been invited up.
Yeah, I was cheering him on yesterday
because he was Rangers.
Yeah, I was cheering him on yesterday into the quarterfinals.
Yeah,
and I seen obviously the Rangers connection, and Rangers have invited him up to a game, so I'm sure he'll take that up. So that's why obviously I was delighted to see him get through, Paul, into the quarters.
Big smile from Barry there on a day when Callum McGregor says he hopes Celtic will sign a couple of more players before the window shuts. Joe Hart welcomes Ben Siegrist, the competition, and that is good. You said that on Friday.
Yeah, I mean, I said at the start of last season there was a lot of people questioning Joe Hart. Has he still got that drive in him or whatever? But I says, listen, you're signing a top goalkeeper. I know him personally. Obviously, we're playing with Joe, I know it was a few years ago, but he's not the best of times over the last 2 or 3 years in terms of playing games. But listen, you've seen what a top goalkeeper he was last season for Celtic. But I think that's a brilliant signing, Siegrist.
Sure is.
I'll be honest with you. And a free transfer. He always stood out when he played with Dundee United. And I'm sure he'll push Joe all the way to try and get that number one spot. I don't think he's coming in there just to pick up a good salary and be number two. I'm sure he's got the mindset of going into trying to be number one, because he's got the ability to be number one.
Yep. Alan Hutton, former Rangers and Tottenham star, is he playing?
Yep, he's playing.
He's one
he
of
was
your
a top
teammates
player.
this
Hutz
weekend.
as well. He was an absolute machine.
What career he had. So he tips Leon King for a starting place for Rangers. Do you see that happening?
Not next season. I think he's got potential to be a Rangers player. I do.
What's so good about him?
I just like the size of him. I think he's got a good manner about him, good attitude about him. He looks to me if he's willing to learn, and that's the key with young players. They're willing to learn and go and speak to the more experienced guys. And he's certainly a player that I think could become a starting player for Rangers. I spoke about him and Lowry. I think next season's to push to get into the 18. Then I think the following season, that's where they've got to go and make their mark. But I hope it's next season. I love nothing more than a young player coming through a system and going on to become a regular in the first team, certainly at Rangers. And I believe Leon King has got the potential. Next season, I'm unsure, but I would love to see it.
Maybe see a bit more of Alex Lowry in the coming season, because he
was another one. I mean, I've seen him a number of times. He's certainly, again, he's got all the ability in the world. He's a bit different from your normal midfielder. You see, he glides with the ball. He's got an eye for goal. He broke onto the scene, and I'm sure the Rangers fans were excited to see him. But as a Rangers fan, I'm excited to see young players now starting to go and make a fist at it, trying to get into that starting 11. And as I said, that's what it's all about. Breaking into that 11 as a young player.
What would you say about Leon Balogun? I see Alfredo Morelos has paid tribute to his old colleague who's on his way out. He's gone now. Leon Balogun did a decent job.
Yeah, I liked him. Yeah. I thought he'd done a real good job for Rangers. Again, he was a player I knew of, but when Rangers signed him for Wigan, you're unsure, can he do a job? But he certainly done a really good job, Balogun, and that's the reason why probably Giovanni's let him go, because of the emergency of Leon King and obviously John Souttar coming in. But no, he was a real good servant for Rangers.
If you're just tuning in, we're in Glasgow's own Paul Cooney with Barry Ferguson, the Go Radio Football Show with Macklin Motors. And the breaking news in the last hour: Duncan Ferguson has left his role as assistant manager to pursue his managerial ambition. That sounds as though there could be something in the offing, although it's hard to see at this stage of the season because it's...
I can't think of many jobs that are
vacant.
Derby.
Sure. Oh, they've
just been took over now.
Yeah. That's a great shout.
It could be one of their ones, but I'm sure the Everton fans are absolutely devastated because he was, as I said, a hero, but not just because of what he'd done as a player. I've heard a lot of good things about him as a coach as well, and a motivator. So yeah, I'm surprised to see that happen.
Down south, Chelsea in advanced talks now with Raheem Sterling from Man City. We mentioned it on Friday. It looks as though it'll happen. I know that's a good one. You're happy with that for Sterling to move to Chelsea?
Yeah, I think he would struggle to get into for game time last season. He struggled at Man City, and I think he'll struggle even this season. So, but he's still a top player, Paul. Still a top player.
He's only 27.
Yeah, I think just 28.
About that. He's younger than you would think. He's been around for so long.
Best years ahead of him. The amount of experience in games and the level that Raheem Sterling's played at, I think that's a top signing for Chelsea.
What about Christian Eriksen? He's agreed in principle to go to Old Trafford. Is that the right move for him, Barry? Would he play every week for Man United?
I think he's good enough. I think he's good enough to play every single week. But I just think it's a brilliant story. I mean, this time last year, Paul nearly died.
I know. Yep. We all watched it.
And goes away and obviously makes his comeback. And fair play to Brentford. Yeah. Fair play to them. They took him in, and I seen 3 or 4 Brentford games and he still looked top class.
Look at the results as soon as he joined.
Yep, he still looked the part, scored a few goals. Technically, his ability's frightening. But in terms of Man United, I can see why they want to sign him. Do I think he's a certain starter? Yep, he's good enough to play with Man United.
What about Ronaldo? Any word have you heard? So he wants to play Champions League. He's got such an amazing record in it. So he's saying, people close to him saying he loves the Man United fans, he loves the club, but he could be leaving Old Trafford. Do you think he will go?
I mean, Ten Hag looks to me, if he's a manager, if you don't want to be there, you won't be there.
And he has to make change, doesn't he? Because they've been.
Yeah, I still think Ronaldo. You never write Ronaldo off, even at 37, Paul.
Well, he says he's got 4 years left.
Yeah, he's a specimen. He's absolutely frightening. And even the criticism he got last year for some quarters, I was baffled, absolute baffled by it. I mean, Man United struggled and he scored 20 goals, or just over 20 goals. Yeah. No, I mean, I think it will be a big loss, but listen, Ronaldo's Ronaldo. I think he'll make a decision. He wants to play Champions League. He knows his career's coming to an end pretty soon. But we'll just need to wait and see what happens there.
Just something James and I were talking about at the weekend. It's tough, isn't it, when you go down the divisions? Airdrie, they have gone viral after naming 13 trialists in their lineup against Cumbernauld Colts at the weekend.
Yeah, I seen that yesterday.
13. I mean, it's tough. You've been, in the third tier. Mm-hmm. How hard is it?
Yeah, it's tough. Certainly tough. 13 trialists. That's the first, if I'm being honest with you. You normally see 3 or 4 trialists playing. I was surprised when I seen 13 trialists. But listen, it's an opportunity for the manager to have a look at these players close up and in a game situation. But it'll be interesting to see how many of the trialists actually sign up.
We'll see what happens. Other headlines: Aaron Hickey looks to be on his way to Brentford. Christian Eriksen, as we mentioned, and Calvin Phillips completes his Man City move. 5-year deal.
6 year.
6 year.
Yeah,
oh, right. Oh, it's 6.
6 years. Yep. Seen it.
Encyclopedic knowledge. You.
I like him.
Yeah.
I really like him.
England international.
Yep. I think it's a brilliant bit of business by Man City. When he played at Leeds, always been impressed with him. When he was out injured, Leeds struggled. Leeds struggled without him. So I think, listen, Pep knows a player.
Sure does. We're nearly out of time. You've said in this hour Celtic are the favourites at the moment, but a lot of business still to come, but favourites to retain the title. What's your message? What would you say to Rangers, what they have to do in the next few weeks?
Yeah, I think the Rangers fans will be watching with interest to see who Rangers bring in. I think Gio knows he needs to strengthen, because as I always say, you need competition for place. He's brilliant that the players have signed on. I think they're short in a couple of areas, so that's something that I'm sure Gio's trying hard to get players in. But also on the flip side of that, there will be a bit of worry, because you've got these guys getting into last year contract, and I mean, every single day I'm seeing whether it's Aribo, Morelos, Ryan Kent. So that's something that the Rangers fans will want to see, either them committing themselves to Rangers, or Rangers will do business if they ain't going to commit.
I'll ask you more about that next Monday. Good luck on Friday at the
Thanks
Masters.
Very much, Paul.
Enjoy it. That should be good. Tomorrow night at 5, Rob McLean and Simon Donnelly. So the conversation continues then. Alan Shaw's up next. You like his voice as well. Jokel Day earlier for Gina. Gina on at breakfast tomorrow.
Oh, she on at breakfast?
She is, yeah, of course. Yeah, it's holiday
Where's
time.
Crofty and Grado?
Holiday. They're allowed a break. Yeah. So Gina tomorrow morning. Thanks everyone. We'll be back tomorrow night with Rob at 5.
The Go Radio Football Show with MacklinMotors.com, representing some of the biggest motoring manufacturers across Scotland.
Let's go!
Service your existing car with us right now.
And it's worth £500 off your next car.
Yes, at Macklin Motors Toyota, we'll give you a £500 voucher off any of our brand new Toyotas when you book in for a service with our expert Toyota trained technicians.
We even have complimentary courtesy cars available, so book your service now and get £500 off any new Toyota.
Visit macklinmotors.co.uk or see us at Kennishead Road, Darnley.
Macklin Motors, the new name for Toyota sales and servicing in Glasgow.
Valid on services till 30th September. Excludes Motability and fleet customers. One £500 voucher per vehicle purchased by 31st December.